All right, thank you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Minnesota GIS Alliance Conference 2021. I'm Ali Hosseini. I'm the moderator for this session, and we have two great presentations in this session. And before we start the presentations, please make sure that you send your messages through Q&A chat box. Our first presentation is about updates on the public land survey system remuneration effort. And we have Chris Mavis from the Hennepin County. And our second presentation is about how to digest GIS. We will have Hannah Hutchins and Shannon Adkins from Hennepin County. Now I hand it over to Chris for the presentation on public land survey system.
Thank you. Hopefully everybody can hear me, everybody can see the screen and everything's okay here. My name is Chris Mavis, I'm the Hennepin County Surveyor. And today I just wanted to talk about an effort that's going on at the state of Minnesota, level. It's really a collaborative effort between a whole bunch of different organizations, but it's all about preserving the public land survey system. So today we're going to go through a bit of history really quick, some what does it mean to you, examples. And then I'll leap into the hub site that we created as like a messaging platform around this effort. So I'll just get started here. So in historical terms, there we go. What is the PLSS? Right? And so it's a lot of different things. But it's a legal and it's a geographic framework that basically covers 2/3 of the United States. So think of every state except the colonial states and Texas. So it covers this whole entire portion of the United States, and it really underpins the property descriptions for nearly all properties in those PLSS states, which enables the secure transfer of property. Well, the other thing that's probably just as interesting is that a whole bunch, almost 90% of all GIS data is directly related to this framework. So this is a really important framework, again, that covers the vast majority of the U.S. So you just think about how many or how big it is. It's like 1.5 billion acres. So that's a big number that the public land survey system comprises. It's a really important framework. So just in Minnesota alone, between in 60 years between 1845 and 1905, we have about 2,600 townships that were created, 84,000 sections, so 1 mile by 1 mile squares across the state. About 325,000 monuments were set defining this framework. So we would, in some ways, you would think of this as like the first big infrastructure project that occurred, not only in on those other parts of the United States, but specifically in Minnesota. So this is another big effort. You want to put it in terms of like step counts. So I'm about 6 foot tall. if I figured this out correctly, I'd need to take about 20,000 steps per day for 60 years in order to cover all of the stuff that the original land surveyors covered when they were slapping mosquitoes and getting poison ivy across the state of Minnesota. So it was a big effort, lots of things happening. So those lines that were created are really defined by two endpoints, and those are the monuments. And the monuments are the things that really define what the public land survey system is. And the original monumentation, this is a federal kind of a deal. The original monumentation is legally where the public land survey system exists. So those monuments, the 325,000 monuments that were set in those, in those 60 years in the 1800s are important to the, legal property descriptions. They're important for locational purposes. Now they're really important for digital purposes. But what we're really trying to establish with this effort, or reestablish with this effort, is good, accurate locations of where these original monuments were in the ground. So that's what this effort is all about. If we look at the current state of our PLS monuments across Minnesota, this is a map that's showing by county what percentage of monuments have a certified location. So by certified, it means that yes, this is where the original position was. Yes, this has a good coordinate value on it, and that type of information. So you can see that there's a bunch that are over 75%. Fully monumented. There's some that are less than that, right? That there's some that are pretty low on the scale, and that's the issue that we're trying to tackle. Ultimately, we want to turn this this state of Minnesota map from the tans and things like that, or the light blues, to all blue. Why is it like this? Well, the feds came in. This was the original government surveys were federal. Right. So they came in, they did all the work. They basically hand all the responsibility off to the state. And they say, hey, state, now it's, it's up to you to take care of this stuff. Well, the state then turns around and hands it off to the county. And for, a whole bunch of variety of reasons or whatever, a lot of the monumentation wasn't maintained. So, it could be anything, right? It could be money or people or time or whatever, just things that were not maintained. And what that's left us with now currently is that less than half of our original 325,000 monuments have a known location. And so that has a negative impact on a lot of different stuff. Again, that's why we're trying to do this legislative effort to get our state remonumented. So for maybe people in the audience, people who are more GIS centric, what does it mean to you? I said that, basically, 90% of almost all GIS data is built on top of the public land survey system in some way or another, right? So like I'm in Hennepin County, we build our parcels. Other people use our parcel information. They're putting infrastructure on top of it. They're putting, zoning and municipal boundaries and, you name it, is being built on top of that public land survey data. Well, at the Minnesota Geospatial Advisory Council, we have this list of, priority lists, right? And so obviously one of the priority lists is top of the list is, free and open data and things like that. But there are a lot of other things on this list that really directly benefit by having an accurate public land survey system underneath it as a framework. But what I'm really saying is that if we have an accurate public land survey system, we're going to have accurate results. We're going to have better decisions, right? We'll have better outcomes that we are using our GIS data analysis for. So that's why it's important to us as GIS professionals, you as GIS professionals. This is the base of it. An example, for Hennepin County, about 5 years ago, I would say 5 years ago, we finished up a ReCOGO effort in Hennepin County. So COGO is coordinate geometry. And we have been fortunate at Hennepin County that we've maintained our public land survey monuments since they were put in the ground. I mean, there's been a few little gaps in the years, but by and large, so, you know, for 160 years or so, Hennepin County has maintained good monumentation and accurate locations on our public land survey monuments. So what we wanted to do at Hennepin with our 400 and almost 40,000 parcels, we wanted to figure out how accurate our parcels were digitally compared to where that you would find them, you know, out in the field. And so there's this thing, right? It's the NSSDA study. It's basically a study that's telling you how accurate your data is. So it gives you a 95% confidence level that your digital data is within X, Y, you know, X number of feet from where you'd find it out on the ground. And we wanted to do that just to have an idea of how accurate our parcels was. And this is getting to the treating your data as an important piece of infrastructure, because data is, you know, it's used, right? I think Jeff Moss said one time, you know, if you put stormwater pipe in the ground, you use it kind of once, right? You see it once and then it's buried and it's gone, but the digital location of that stormwater pipe is just used on and on and on and on and on downstream for all kinds of GIS analysis. Well, this is the same kind of thing. We're treating our parcels as a really important piece of infrastructure. So we wanted to know how accurate it is. The results look like this. You know, we also have been fortunate at the county to have collected a whole bunch of points. And in fact, I started out, I think, with over 27,000 points that had been collected all across the county. Well, a lot of those were on the right of way. And that doesn't, you know, that actually kind of skews the results. So what I did is I whittled down that 27,000 to 2,500 points that weren't on the right of way. And then I started to do this analysis. Okay, well, how far is our digital information away from where we physically located it on the ground? And this is what we came up with, is that for us at Hennepin County, you know, we have a 95% confidence level that you're going to find our digital information is going to be plus or minus 2 feet across the entire county, which is really, really, really good. And it's a testament to the effort that we put in for public land survey perpetuation and having good coordinate values on those monuments. So that's been this benefit to us as Hennepin County. We have this knowledge that we have this highly accurate parcel base that, you know, we can do all sorts of add-on information to it. We can do really good accurate analysis for, you know, all kinds of decision making, from very specific project to, you know, high level policy decision making. So that benefit, you know, just in like real specific terms, is that, you know, we had a survey crew, a private land surveying crew. They downloaded our digital data and they were out looking for survey evidence, and they were saying, hey, we found evidence here. 490, basically the Best Buy campus, we found evidence here that was within 2/10 of where your GIS data said it would. So that's really awesome. I mean, that is what we're really striving for in terms of accurate information. So that, you know, that's the physical location, but obviously that meant our digital location, we have this digital confidence where our boundaries are. So that's, you know, kind of two different benefits there, but really coming back to the same thing where we have that accurate public land survey monumentation. So that leads me into this collaborative effort. So this really started as an effort, again, driven out of the Geospatial Advisory Council. So the or the Parcel Land Records Committee, headed by Preston Dowell, and then Pat and Allison and Ryan are parts of subcommittees or leading subcommittees and things like that. But one of the subcommittees is really talking about legislation. How do we, as a group that represents basically all kinds of interests across the state of Minnesota. So from surveyors to engineers to GIS professionals to real estate people to, insert title here, how this remonumentation effort actually benefits everybody. So from John or Jane Q. Public all the way up to the governor. So we started this as part of a subcommittee. We had some model legislation that we grabbed from Michigan. We've modified that, but that's all well and good, right? But this shouldn't just be a collaborative effort by just a few select people. This should really be for everybody to be part of this effort, because this is really, an important project that should be completed. So what I'm just saying here, asking, I guess this is kind of a call to action, right? We have a few people on our committee. So Dan is on it, Dan Ross is on it. We have a person from the Bureau of Land Management. We have an attorney on there and things like that, but we really like a lot of others on in terms of giving perspectives and actually helping this effort to go forward. So built a website, actually a hub site. I'm just going to flip over to it. I built this hub site. Is that showing up, Ollie?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I built this site. So the part of the committee, we got on and we decided, okay, well, let's figure out what we're going to do, whether it's a story map or something like that. We landed on a hub site that's built on the U of M's in their environment, and their ArcGIS Online environment. Started cranking this out. And really, like I said earlier, this hub site is really to center messaging around the preservation of the public land survey system. This is what it is. And so there's some, broadly brushed statements in here, like, hey, what are the benefits? Right. So these are kind of broad topic deals, but then there's more specific things that individuals can go in and look at, like, if I'm part of private industry, how does the public land survey system impact me? Or if I'm an elected official, how are decisions that I'm doing, that information or data that I need, how is this affecting me? Public land survey system, public employee, or a general public. So we're trying to cover a lot of different patterns, I guess, with how it's actually beneficial to you specifically. There's other things that were put in here. We got some statistics about our original monumentation versus what we have, a live interactive map. We have some things about history. So I just gave like a super quick 5-minute history. You can learn more about public land survey system history specific to Minnesota. Learn why corner certification is important. Corner, we talk about certified locations, and that means something. So that means that there is something that is on file at the local government. That means that there's a coordinate value on it. That means a whole bunch of things. So why is that important? Again, if we're thinking about coordinates, it's important to GIS. Learn about it, learning about the land surveyor's role in the public land survey system. And then it's again, this is this call to action for everybody, whoever wants to do it. We have a draft business case out there. It's a work in progress. We have some draft legislation that's really close. You can connect with the committee. You can download a letter of support. You can see our list of supporters, which is getting bigger and bigger by the day. We have a find your representative. So if you actually wanted to send a letter of support directly to your representative, that would be great. So that's all out there. We have other success stories. So like with Michigan or Wisconsin or Utah or others, those success stories are out there. And then we have some events that we're promoting. So Meet Me at the Corner is an event that we've had every year, typically coinciding with the GIS-LIS annual meeting. It didn't happen this year, right? Because we're virtual, but we're going to probably do that as a standalone event in 2022. But this is really about having any and all people show up to learn more about the importance of the public land survey system. And then, the rest is kind of just general hub kind of things like, hey, I could sign up to follow this initiative, or I could do a contact with us. So the committee exists, I guess I would say that, but again, I'm just talking to the audience. It would be really nice if we would have people who would connect with our committee and want to volunteer to be on our committee to actually help move this effort forward in the legislative process here in January. So with that, I can take questions if anybody has any. So I do have a question. I do have a question about a rural county. Private surveyors not required to file corner certs. Board will not take it up, this issue, for what I believe are political reasons. Actually, in Hennepin County, we do not require surveyors to file corner, or I guess, I was thinking private surveys require file corner certs. This is probably to the person in the rural county. I would say this is probably a bigger discussion that we could have maybe on the side, because this is getting into some political things. I would say if you want to contact me or somebody else on our committee, we can certainly have probably depth of conversation around that. Let's see, Corey. I'm going to reshare my screen here quick. So I have Corey telling people about writing letters of support. So what we have done is we've created a boilerplate letter of support. It downloads it as a doc file. It's basically saying, hey, insert organization here. This is why supporting the public land survey system is important to us, and here are some specific reasons. So for engineers, for example, hey, public land survey system, a lot of our roads are built on top of or part of the public land survey system. That's why it's important to us from in terms of location of roads. For GIS-LIS, for example, it's kind of a different story. Hey, here's why it's important. It's because we have good accurate coordinate values, so we have good accurate information. So when you do write a letter of support, you can do a couple things. One would be to send it to the committee, just say, hey, here's my letter of support, and you can and the committee will be taking that with them to the legislature. And or you can address it directly to your representative. So if if you're a single person, maybe not an organization, right? You could send it specifically to your representative. I think I saw another one pop in from Jessica, but I don't know where that one went. Ali, did you see that one?
Jessica is asking, what does the support letter entail?
Okay, so that was I answered that
Yeah, the
a
same
bit.
question.
Oh, so Kendall from Dakota County, what can we do locally to work towards this mission? If it can be at any level. So Kendall was asking about the city or county or maybe even the state, right? So what can individuals do? If you work at a city level, you can use this hub site actually to speak to like your city leaders. Hey, we do all of our roads are laid out on top of the public land survey system and da 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 da, right? And so this is really important. Or our infrastructure is all based on top of this public land survey system, so this is really important for us to maintain. So having support from multiple different levels, public and private, it would be really great. So at the county level, what I've done at Hennepin County is I've put this in as a platform suggestion for our county board to consider. So we have a group that does our lobbying at Hennepin County. So I connected with them. I said, hey, I'd like to have Hennepin County support this statewide legislation from a board level. And so if you have relationships at the board, please talk to them, because having Dakota County support would be great. Or if it's Inver Grove Heights or whatever cities in Dakota County, all of that support would be well received by the people working on this legislation. I don't see. No, do a chat. Oh, same question. I think that's it. Ali, do you any others?
No, I can't see more questions. Myself, I have a question about data collection in the public land survey system.
Yeah.
Is there new technology? Are you using new technologies like LiDAR technology in collecting those points for the monumentation?
No, not LiDAR. So the points are discrete points. So they would need an ability to capture a discrete point. So that's a GPS or a traditional traversing into that discrete point. So no, we don't use that yet. Our LiDAR resolution isn't as good, right?
Makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I do have one last question. How can we get involved with committee? Come down to here and just hit a connect with us, either at this place, which is going to spin open, it's going to spin open an email, and it's going to have, hey, I got I don't know what a subject line exactly I can put on top of that just as a default, but it's either here, you can connect with our committee and say, I'd love to be on the committee, which would be great. Or you can connect up here as well. So there's a couple different ways, but basically it's an email that gets sent out to our committee, and we would welcome you aboard. Okay. I think that was it. No other questions?
I think there's no more question. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for the great presentation.
Thank you. And if anybody, connect with the committee or reach directly out to me, just chris.mavis@hennepin.us, and I'll be happy to talk to you. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chris. And thank you for the presentation on updates on the public land survey system remonumentation effort. That was such a great example of collaboration in GIS. Now let's turn into the second presentation about how to digest GIS. We have Hannah Hutchins and Shannon Adkins from Hennepin County. And I just hand it over Hannah.
Yeah, I am not able to start my video. Do you have any control over that? I need everybody to see me.
Just click on.
Yeah, I'm hitting and I'm getting this prompt that says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
Now you can do.
Yay. All right.
Yay.
Thank you. I will share my screen. Hello, everybody. Let's get started. So today, Shannon and I want to talk about how we have been working with the Hennepin County Library staff and helping them understand and digest GIS. So before we get into it, we can do some intros. So I'm Hannah Hutchins. I'm the GIS coordinator for the operations line of business at Hennepin County. And so I support a handful of departments that fall under that line of business, and the Hennepin County Libraries are one of them. Shannon, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. I'm Shannon Adkins. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a research and data analyst with Hennepin County Library. So not a GIS staff person, but a huge GIS consumer. And thanks for having me with you all today.
Awesome. Anyone who's a GIS fan is welcome to GIS LIS. So, and then we can see the participants who are here, but if you're comfortable with it, we'd love to see, what organizations are here just to kind of get an idea. And so if you're comfortable, putting your name and your org in the chat would be nice. So for today, we're going to be talking about two kind of main topics. One of them is how we've been working to create this culture of spatial thinking within the Hennepin County Library System. And then the second part is really showing how we're doing that and how we're sustaining that. So first things first, I think a lot of these things are going to be, I'm sure a lot of you are doing this sort of stuff in your work, but I think it's really interesting to hear how these things that we've been doing within the Hennepin County Library System together have been really creating this culture. And so I think the first thing that we've been doing is establishing relationships. And there's two sort of relationships in my mind. Shannon and I have a relationship. We meet once a month. So we have that space to just have conversation about the projects that are happening at the library, the new applications or updates, new data within GIS, just to continue that connection. But then also there's this other relationship where, Shannon and I have with the Hennepin County Library staff. And one thing that we found to be really effective is to make sure that these relationships are more collaborative in nature versus transactional. So by transactional, I mean, someone says, I need a map, we make a map, we deliver it, and then that's sort of it. We have worked really hard to empower Hennepin County Library staff to take ownership of their project and to understand the GIS components of it. So it's more of a conversation, which has been really effective. Something else that we do to harness culture of spatial thinking is the language that we use when we're talking about GIS. I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm talking about. Using technical jargon with people who aren't GIS, don't have knowledge in GIS, you can just tell it just goes right over their head. And so we have made it a point to make sure our language is accessible and understandable to whomever we're talking to. So instead of saying geocoding, we say we're going to take your addresses in a spreadsheet and we're going to translate them to points on a map. Again, just continuing to build that bridge between us and them. Approachability, that's also a really big piece, making people feel comfortable and welcome. I think Shannon is always telling people that you don't need to know the data sets, the spatial data sets that you want to integrate into your project. You don't need to know the exact questions to ask the GIS person. Just come to us and let's just start a conversation. And then the last piece, keeping that conversation going and checking in has been really key. Shannon, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. I would just kind of echo what you're saying and add that all of these techniques really add up to building that culture that we want to have of using spatial thinking, and have kind of enabled us in the library from shifting from seeing GIS as kind of a technology to a tool. And I'm really playing fast and loose with definitions there, right? So don't at me with the definitions of technology and tools. But what I mean is a tool is something we can use, right? The folks know how to apply, because I think library staff in general understand, yep, GIS is a technology, but what does that mean to me? And kind of a parallel of this in the library world might be, I still get this question all the time from folks who maybe haven't been to their local library lately, and they will say something like, why do we need libraries when we have Google, right? And it's this idea that you have the technology, you have the tool, but kind of setting aside the role that libraries play in connecting folks to the internet, there's actually still a huge lift in our culture right now. We almost have too much information, right? So there's the role of, how do you evaluate information? How do you assess it for reliability? How do you kind of take it and scope it and find what you need to do the thing that you are trying to do? And so kind of bringing this back to the GIS piece, I think that's the role that as GIS professionals, you all really help us with, is that building the strong relationship with Hannah and with Hennepin County GIS has helped our staff who get the concept of GIS and mapping and spatial data, but don't know how to apply it or don't know how to interpret the products that they are getting back. And so I think really bridging that gap and thinking about how we can actually apply the tools and the technology to kind of the gnarly questions that we are trying to answer in our work and are facing every day is the bridge that this culture really is trying to meet.
Thank you, Shannon. So now we're going to go into a few ways that we've been really establishing and continuing that culture. So this next piece, I guess, Shannon, if you want to take over showing a few tools, do you want me to go right to the tools? That'd be helpful.
Sure. Let me just give a little preface first on what we'll talk about. So one of the ways that we're doing this, building this culture of spatial thinking, is, like Hannah's getting at here, making some tools available to staff to use in their work. So I think we're just going to walk you through two specific examples. One are the library community profiles, and then we'll get into the patron primary library map. But I just want to give a note on the audience. We've kind of included that here so that you can get a sense of like, who are our stakeholders in our organization? And that's staff, supervisors, library administrators, and it's a really broad group. And I just want to highlight that because it's on purpose. We really are trying to support folks with tools that can be useful from, your frontline public facing staff person all the way up to the director level of somebody, driving the direction of our organization. And so these are really targeted at a broad range of folks. So with that, Hannah, I would love if you could take us to the community profiles.
Yes, 1 second.
Thank you.
You see it? Okay.
I can. So here we are looking at a map that's the Hennepin County boundary, and then we've got 41 points, and those are 41 library locations within the Hennepin County library system. And so that covers Hennepin County and then the city of Minneapolis. And if we click on these, Hannah, you can pick one at random, I think. What we've got here is we have linked folks to community profiles at the local location for the past few years. So if we open up that 2020, that 2020 PDF, this brings us to a demographic report that has been crafted for that specific location. So this is a tool that we've got folks using across our libraries. And you can kind of see that we've structured it here. This is like an Esri tool that we have customized. And Hannah, did you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, we use the Esri Community Analyst application within ArcGIS Online to generate these reports. You got it, Shannon.
So the way that we've structured this is you can kind of see those different areas that we have grouped data around. We've got population, we've got race, we've got income and poverty, housing. And this for us is translating back to a Hennepin County wide goal of advancing racial equity and reducing disparities. And the way that we've structured this is pretty intentional. It's not throwing just a bunch of random demographic information at staff and hoping they know what to do with it, but really thinking about what messages folks are hearing from leaders, what areas they're being asked to work on, and aligning some data to those specific areas. So if you go to the next page, Hannah. Thank you. So what we've got here is we've got our local library identified, and then you can see where there's a 2-mile radii. So that I just want to highlight because that's the area that this data is pulling for. And that was identified in partnership with staff. So that's a key point here, is that our supervisors sat down with staff when they were creating these reports and really talked about, how far are folks coming from to our library? What is our kind of community? What is our area that we're serving? And really being intentional to be responsive to what folks know at their local level about that. And then we have the data organized, again, around those different topics. And I just want to highlight also that we have 2 columns. We've got the local level column. So here we've got our Linden Hills community, and then we've got the Hennepin County as a whole data as well. And that's something that is so our staff can really focus in on both what's the big picture of our county, but also what's unique to their community and what does that mean for them? What unique local decisions might they need to make based on some of this data? I think the other point I would just make about how we created these is that it wasn't just Hannah and I sitting in a room. So we got together with some library staff, some library supervisors who really looked at all of the data available in, the Esri data browser, I think is the tool that we looked at. But we went through each data point and just talked about, why would this be important to library staff? What might this tell us? What decisions might folks use? Could this tell us something about programming or community engagement? And really evaluated what would be meaningful to staff. So again, just trying to make it as targeted to folks as we can. I won't go into how to interpret this. I'm sure you all are much more versed in that than I am, but I just want to highlight how folks are actually using this. So these are available each year to staff throughout our organization, and we're seeing folks use them in grant applications and reporting. So each year we apply for AmeriCorps technology grants. We apply for, there's a park program with the DNR that requires each of those programs often require some type of threshold of a target that they're trying to meet in terms of community. And our staff use these to support, our community is a part of the demographic you're trying to reach and to kind of fill out those applications. But then we also use them in our daily work. So informing service program, engagement decisions. Some of our supervisors came together and actually crafted a facilitation guide around these reports. So it's a number of questions that they are bringing out to staff and really leading them through at the local level, some conversations about, what does this tell us? What does this mean for us? How can we use it in our work? And those reflective questions can help us answer things like, are the people I'm seeing in my library reflective of the demographics in my community? How about in my programs? Who am I missing? What partnerships am I missing in my community that this is telling me I need to work on? And then the other piece is just that this isn't a substitute for community engagement. So I kind of want to be clear about that this doesn't replace that piece of the work for us. It just helps us be more targeted and kind of prompt some things that might help us do that with a more informed lens. So these reports have been a super helpful tool for us overall, and I hope it's just coming through that as we are really trying to make them digestible for staff, that includes just involving them in the creation, supporting them in the use of them, and just not handing these off as a report that we hope, lets them make good decisions, but stepping them through what we hope they get out of these. Now I'd like to highlight a different library application. Hannah, could we go to the patron primary library one? Thank you. So this map, I'm going to say right off the bat, it's a lot to look at. As it loads, you'll see it's got a lot of colors going on. But what this is doing is this is built on our cardholder data. So every time somebody registers for a library card with us, they've got an address in their account. And I won't go too detailed into how this is made, but if anyone's interested, just let me know. But basically what we're doing here is mapping all of our users to a census tract based on their address, and then assigning those census tracts to a library based on what patrons have identified as their primary library in their account. So if Hannah, if you click on just any random one, you can see, maybe it's a little small for you all, but you can see that 76% of the cardholders that we've mapped to that particular census tract identified Golden Valley as their library in their library account. And so we've mapped that to the color corresponding with Golden Valley Library. So why did we do this? What does this tell us? For us, we wanted to dig in a little bit to our assumptions about where our users are and how they move throughout our county and libraries. We've got quite a few, and so it's really important for us to know what libraries folks are connecting with so that we've got staff in the right places, connecting with the right schools, doing engagement in the right kinds of spaces. And Hannah, would you turn on the radius layer? I just want to circle back to this because in the profiles that we just looked at, I mentioned the radii developed with staff. And if we look at what some of those look like, and actually, will you leave the?
Yes, yep.
Thank you. If we look at those, we can see that some of them are pretty close and some of them have huge gaps. So this is a place for us where we're actually learning through our kind of spatially mapped data about our users where they are, and it's just a lot more accurate for us. This is a little bit of a newer application for us, so we're still rolling it out, but some ways that we are using it are to, like I said, drive some of those targeted partnerships with different community organizations, thinking about where we're connecting with schools. It's also going to be really useful as we do things like capital projects or make service changes where we are going out and asking folks about what they want to see. This helps us make sure we're reaching the right people for those libraries. And just as an example of kind of an insight that this has given us, one thing that initially surprised me when I was looking at it is there's that teal census tract in kind of the northwest corner of Hennepin County. And that surprised me. The primary library there is Plymouth, and that maps back to, that one kind of more in the center there. And I just wasn't sure why folks from that particular census tract would be using Plymouth Library when it kind of appears that other libraries would be closer, like as the crow flies. But when we turn on like the base map for our navigation, thank you, Hannah, and just make the other layer a little bit more transparent, we can start to see that there's like a highway 55 that runs right through there. So it makes total sense that, folks would be, it's probably, the most quickest and efficient way to just go to Plymouth from some of those areas versus those libraries that might look closer. But it's probably a gap that we haven't been thinking about that particular corner as part of our Plymouth service area when we've been making decisions. So now this can help us broaden that and make sure we're reaching out to that group of folks as we make decisions that might affect them. So these are the kinds of insights that we are generating with these tools. They have broad application for all of our staff, but also this is kind of not the only piece that we are doing in terms of just building tools and making them available. So I would love to turn it back to Hannah to talk a little bit about how we are supporting folks in other ways.
Awesome. Yes, thank you, Shannon. So, more from my end and ways that we've been creating more spaces for people to feel supported and really to help make meaning of these GIS resources. There are two sort of applications that we've developed. One is this Library GIS Hub, and then this other one is a training that we've been using, and we use Story Maps as a platform for those, and that was intentional, which I'll get into later. But so as you can see here, similar to all the applications that we were showing you earlier, a lot of our audiences for these applications can be everything from front-end staff to administrators, which has been really wonderful. So I will just show you, let me go back to the hub here. So one way, oops, sorry about that. One way that we have been making it easy for library staff to access resources and to really continue that culture going is through this Library GIS Hub. So this was made through enterprise sites because we wanted it just internal for internal staff, but it's similar to a hub and ArcGIS Online. So we're using this as a one-stop shop for staff to come to not only see, oh, what other projects have library staff been using within GIS. They can get the context for those projects. They can click on a map and get, like I said, context around that. And so it's not just like a map, there's some sort of story behind it. The user can also get information about what enterprise wide data is available to them that we felt may add to their project. And so we have those there for staff to look at. But this has been really helpful. If someone is interested in GIS or they want to know about a specific project, it's just a matter of sending them this URL, and it's very self-contained. We feel that it's fairly user-friendly. Additionally, we have some best practices. So if staff are having issues viewing certain maps, or they want to start the conversation of, hey, I think I might have a spatial component to my project, but I don't even know where to begin, we give them some good talking points to help guide them through that. And then one other way that we've created support and meaning making is this training that we've developed. This, like I said, we made this using the Story Map platform. And like I said, that was intentional. We wanted to create a training that could be used as a presentation tool, which Shannon and I have done. We've given presentations using this Story Map, but also as something that could be standalone for users who prefer to learn on their own, who maybe need to go at a specific pace to learn about something. They have that ability to do that. And so this is the Story Map that we've used. And it's really about the fundamentals here. And like I said, this incorporates the language piece, the accessibility piece, the approachability aspect, breaking down what GIS is, talking about, spatial data, and really starting at the root of it, and then building on that. We also go into, data layering. What does that look like? We've had a lot of library staff say they couldn't conceptualize data being layered on top of one another. And so we wanted to make it a point to help folks understand that. And again, everything in here is very specific and tailored to the work that the library does. Additionally, navigating web maps, that's also something that's popped up. And so helping people understand what a widget is, because that's just a weird word. And so let's further define what that means and what that looks like. And so creating, space and language and information around how to navigate this application that is really a key piece of using GIS. But then Shannon did a really wonderful job of saying, okay, so you know what GIS is, you have these fundamentals, how does that translate into your work? And so we've structured this in a way where if you can use GIS to better understand your communities, you can use it to answer reference questions, so on and so forth. And then, making sure that we're always available. So we have our contact information. So this has been really helpful as sort of a starting point for library staff to use if they're interested or if they're furthering their GIS endeavors. Did you have anything to add to that, Shannon? No?
No, thank you.
Okay, great. So I will go back to my presentation. That is about it, folks. We have our contacts here. So if you have specific questions, you want to have further conversation around this, or you just want to like chit chat about this, Shannon and I are very open to that. We're also curious to hear how you've been creating a culture of spatial thinking within your organization. So if there are any questions or comments, we're all ears, but thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Hannah and Shannon. We wait just a little bit if we have any questions from the attendees.
I see some of you filled out your name and organization. Thank you for that. I recognize some of you. Well, I mean, since we have some time, Shannon and I, or Shannon came up with a few questions, just to maybe see if anyone wanted to get a conversation going. But if there are ways that your organization works to sustain a culture of spatial thinking, we'd love to hear more about it, either now or later.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. I think I would put out to the group as somebody outside the GIS kind of community. I'm curious how folks are, if these are the kinds of questions that folks are hearing from the organizations they support as well, and how, how you support organizations then in ways that we could learn from. And I also will say there's a question in the chat, Hannah. It's from Nancy. It says, it looks like all the resources you showed are only available to internal staff. Is there anything on a public site that's available?
Good question. So the only thing that would be technically public is the story map, because that was made in ArcGIS Online. Otherwise, we kept everything internal to make it easier for just this Hennepin County Library staff to access.
Yeah, I would just add to that. There is one application that we link to. I don't think in this particular presentation we talked about it, but it's a public facing kind of site that Hennepin County GIS maintains that we link to for our staff, so that as they're working with the public, they can point folks to that data site. And they get a lot of questions about, tax stuff and land property, and like the Hennepin Waypoint was one of them, where are free and low cost community resources? So making sure that they're comfortable navigating those resources for folks has been important. And then the other thing is those community profile reports, those are internal, but we do have folks that share them with community partners. So sometimes, if we've got folks that are partnering with a local organization in their neighborhood, they often will like print and share that and kind of come together around what the data is showing them. So it's not available to them easily, but I know they do print them.
Yeah, and I will just say also, I mean, we do have, even though a lot of the applications that we showed you all today, they're more internal, we do have, the library does have other public facing applications. We have this digital collections application that was developed to show, where within the county we have historic photos and restaurant menus and postcards. And so you can sort of see like, oh, what's in my neighborhood. And so that's something that we have public facing, if anyone's interested in that. I will say it's just really cool to see a lot of the things that Shannon talked about today, looking at these applications. Like I was not a part of any of those conversations. Like that was very much the library staff doing that on their own. And that just like makes my job worth it all, to like see people, doing that sort of spatial thinking all on their own. Is there any, thank you, Nancy. Is there anything else or any other thoughts people have? Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Hannah, for the great presentation on how to digest GIS. I personally learned many things about library staff and level use of GIS, like story maps, Hub. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Good. You're welcome.
And thank you, everybody, for attending this year's conference. I hope to see you next year. And this is the end of this session. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.